has donated over $200,000 to the Liberal Party when it sent its proposal for approval by the federal government. So I think that says something about the impact that these donations are having when a community is turning up in clear opposition and they're telling me they don't want this development, but the developer's getting their way because they have the cash.
Thank you. Andrew, would you like to respond to that?
Good, thanks, Damien. Mark Robinson and myself have taken up this fight for the future of Straddie. Obviously, killing off sand mining was an economic crime. I'm not saying that it should start again. You need a diversified economy, so you have to actually diversify Straddie before you kill off 150 jobs and another 150 on the mainland. I mean, you cannot take miners and get them sweeping campsites and making cappuccinos. And it's easy to start blaming big business. It'll always be the fallback. But the Greens take donations from the board members of the business, just not through the company. And they're quite happy to take that same money. They're no different. They're fully funded by individuals in big companies, though they deny it. The future of Straddie is diversification. The future of Straddie is not a $20 million band-aid from the state government. I'm the only federal MP who turned up to a state government inquiry. I looked them in the eye and I said, you will create...
Can you save your comments later, please?
You will create the next Palm Island 30 kilometres from our doorstep. If you do not diversify, and you're with a party, sir, just hang on. If you do not diversify economy and you simply make people unemployed, there is no easy way for that beautiful island to recover in the medium term.
Thank you, Andrew. Before we pose the next question, can I please ask for a bit of civility and a bit of quiet from the audience? If you've got comments to make, I'll ask for them at the end. Thank you. I've got a question here. Do we have... Excuse me? Could we please pay the candidates some respect? Thank you. Thank you. James Frederick, I believe you had a question on gender equality and domestic violence. Turn your microphone on.
It's on now. Okay, so speaking of gender equality and support for domestic violence victims and survivors, given according to the 2015 National Criminology Institute Personal Safety Survey, 34% of DV victims were male, and according to academic studies into DV, 70% of intimate partner violence is initiated by women. Yet $0 have been spent by federal government supporting men fleeing domestic violence relationships where they are the victim rather than the perpetrator. What do you propose is done to promote equality in this area?
I'm going to throw that one straight to Darren.
Thanks, Dave. Oh, let's go over here and make sure this works. Okay, so I'm going to get our message correct here. So our policy is to enforce a zero tolerance approach to all family violence. That's it. Our domestic violence legislation will be amended to ensure that services and support will be provided to all victims, regardless of their age, gender or sexuality. So everyone will be treated the same when it comes to our legislation and changes. Yeah. Anyone can be a victim of domestic violence. Exactly what you're saying. At what point in our society did the price of a man's life become less than that of a woman or a child? That's exactly where I'm coming from. Please, we all need to be treated the same. So I've got that. Our reforms to existing policy. So we're going to have no reference to gender. Any person can make an allegation to police and seek protection for family domestic violence. So anyone can go to police. They will be treated the same and police will treat them the same, for sure. State police must act on behalf of any victim when a complaint is made. Allegations where children are involved must be supported by supervision orders to maintain child access. So you can't just rip families apart, tear the community up, destroy families. It's not police's job to destroy families. Police's job is to catch criminals. Okay, that's where we come from. A court will not be able to make ex parte orders when children are involved, But so if it's generally a parenting dispute, most domestic violence disputes are that. Children are involved, they're parenting disputes. Where children are involved, both parties must be in that court. Ex parte orders cannot be made. Police cannot issue ouster orders unless the respondent on the order is provided access to crisis accommodation. We only had a male last week come in and see us. Okay, there was an assault between him and his ex-partner. He got a police protection notice issued on her, but because she was on the lease of the house, he had to leave. Where did he go? He had nowhere to go. He was the victim of domestic violence. He was booted out of his own home. And the obvious, where allegations of abuse or violence are found to be false, mandatory penalties will apply. That's where we come from.
Karen Ed, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you for the question, and a great question, and something that when I ran for state election in 2017 was definitely a really interesting topic to hear from other parties as well. I think from a Senate candidate's point of view, we need to be inclusive, and it does need to be all victims. Definitions need to be taken out of that. We then also need to be including our companion animals in that. So I've sat on 2 domestic violence charities, one in the Gold Coast, one in Brisbane, and we are seeing women come in and talking about seeing their dog's head chopped off in front of them. We are seeing that animals are being used as their threat. So this is what I'm going to do to the cat, and if you don't comply, it's what I'll be doing to you. I have an experience as an RSPCA inspector, and the links between animal cruelty cases and domestic violence cannot be denied. And we need to start investing the money that the government's putting up into services, refuges, shelters that caters for all victims, including our companion animals.
Thank you. I've got a question here from Shane Goodwin. I know he's here tonight. It's a question for the Pirate Party. Could somebody take the mic out to Shane, please? Hand up. Come on. I see you.
While we find that, there was another part to that question before.
That's okay, we're good.
We good?
Are you ready, Shane?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Hell yeah.
I've had a look through the Pirate Party's policies and a few other ones, and I'm familiar with some of your views on drug legalisation. I just thought I'd ask precisely which drugs you thought should be legalised and by when.
Brandon?
Thank you for the question, Shane. We agree with the LDP on this one. We'll start with cannabis and then we'll come for the rest as it goes along. Does that answer your question?
How long?
For how long? How long? Realistically, it wouldn't happen unless there was a massive shift in thinking. Wouldn't be less than 5 years.
Thank you. I was wondering if Lyle has an opinion on that?
Yeah, I do. As someone who's seen friends die as a result of cannabis use, I'm against...
Please.
Well, mate,
Please, can we listen?
one of my school friends went down to Melbourne, got into the pot smoking fraternity, and it fried his brain. He came back a different person. Look, I just think drugs are dangerous. I don't think we should be sending a message to children and to young people that they are okay. I'm against chemotherapy. Yeah, well, that's for medicine. Look, medicinal cannabis, I'm fine with, in the same way that we have medicinal heroin used as morphine. So, you know, we've got to be sensible about that. But to send a message that drugs are somehow okay and legalise all of them, I think is irresponsible and reckless, and we will see many young people lose their lives as a result of it. Sure, prohibition is hard, The prohibition on murder is hard. The prohibition on domestic violence is hard. But just because we have difficulty as a society stopping something doesn't mean we should give up the fight and open these things up open slather. I think our children's lives are too precious, and we don't want to see them in lives of addiction because we send a message that these things can somehow be used in a way that's safe. They just can't.
All right, thank you, Lance. Gab, would you like to respond to that, Gab? Do you have an opinion?
It's interesting. Done. There we go. Yeah, well, that's very interesting. It's odd that people lump drugs into one bucket and say drugs are bad, because there are a range of different chemicals with a vast array of different effects on different people's physiologies. So to say that one form of drug that they're serving behind this bar is fine and we can have that in our society, but not that green stuff that the weird hippies smoke, that's just ludicrous. Alcohol kills tens, hundreds of thousands of Australians every year. Tobacco kills hundreds of thousands of Australians. Cannabis has never killed anyone. Never. The only way cannabis can kill you is if a bale of it falls off a truck and lands on you. Granted, it is not 100% safe. Nothing is. Driving here tonight wasn't 100% safe. To try and take all the risk out of society just because, something bad might happen, that is the reason why this country is being micromanaged down to the nth degree. That's the reason why the Liberal Party's, saying we can't, pay with cash anymore. That's the reason why the Labor Party's trying to tell us how much sugar we can put in a biscuit. That's a real one. Yeah, they want to. You read that one? Yeah. This is just every day, and we're almost to the point where we're just accepting this as business as usual, that these people who have no real authority, they're just like you and me, are telling us how we can live our lives, to the point... Fair point. And the drugs issue is very much like that, because you have a wide array of substances, and if we take the bar that alcohol is legal, we don't want to get rid of alcohol. Lots of people like it. I don't drink it, but plenty of people do. I don't like the federal government that much. But if we take alcohol, tobacco, say they're legal, we don't want to give them to kids, obviously, but grown-ups, we're here, we're all big and ugly enough to take care of ourselves. We can make up our own minds about those. I can decide whether I want to go to the bar and have a drink. It's a bad idea, but I can decide whether I want to do it or not. If you take any drugs that are objectively less harmful to both the consumer and in wider society than either alcohol or tobacco, there is absolutely no logical, moral justification for having them illegal.
I think Andrew wants to comment on that.
Thank you. Damien, as we know, it's a walking tragedy that we don't have the other major party here tonight, but both major parties have a generally similar position on
personally
alcohol.
am devastated, I have to say.
Yeah, and marijuana. I, as one of the 4 registered medicos in Parliament, chair the Medicinal Cannabis Industry Association, so I'm very proud that the Libs were the ones who legalised federally medicinal marijuana. At a personal level, I'm the MP that has said there is just no way that someone on Newstart getting $555 a fortnight, which is completely, for many of us to, can I just finish my answer?
We'll open it to the floor.
$555, to be paying that to a drug dealer. I mean, just no Australian thinks that's okay. And so I think if you're on a welfare payment in replace of work, you've got to be ready to work if you're healthy, and you've got to be prepared to submit to a drug test, as a politician should be as well, if you want to maintain those payments. Now, Labor doesn't believe in that. Labor has a far less permissive approach to alcohol sponsorship. My view is I'm comfortable with that in a club like this, very comfortable with responsible consumption of alcohol, and I don't think it needs to be the bad guy and walked out of town. But as far as marijuana goes, both major parties in the same position. I don't stray too far from the flock, and the medical view is that no, it's not safe to legalise for recreational use.
Thank you, Andrew. I think Emma wants a quick comment on that. Excuse me, can we just wait for 1 second? We'll open up to the audience shortly. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a note that hasn't yet been touched on, that regardless of whether you think that a certain drug is safe to use or not, the fact is that criminalisation has simply not worked. In fact, the rates of use are actually increasing across Australia, despite the fact that marijuana in particular is illegal. And if we want to actually get people out of the cycle of criminalisation and stop them having to deal with dealers, then they don't have to spend any money on it, don't worry, they can grow their own. And then they don't have to be part of a system which could maybe lead them down a dangerous path.
But if
and we
speed
know
limits
that
don't do away with road deaths, do we get
Andrew,
rid of
speak, please?
speed limits? Like,
Sorry.
do we get rid of it because
drop the mic, Andrew? If I just say thank you.
Yeah, and if we're talking about, I also wanted to just touch on pill testing as well, because we know we've just had the second trial completed of pill testing at Groove in the Moo in Canberra, and there were 7 potentially fatal substances identified through that process, and that means that that's potentially 7 lives that were saved. And I see no reason that when we know that some people will choose to use drugs, so there's no reason that we shouldn't keep them as safe as possible.
Thank you, Emerald. Okay, we're going to move on. I've got a question from James Thompson on social media. James? Oh, it's warming up. Sorry, wireless mics have a warm-up period.
All right. What do the panellists think of politicians and candidates banning or blocking constituents from their pages?
I'm going to kick that one straight to Brandon.
I don't do it, personally. They're allowed to comment on my page. I can either feed the trolls or just ignore them. Or I can respond. It's up to me. It's my page, it's my choice, but I don't ban anyone.
Okay, Shane hasn't had much to say. Could you respond to that, Shane?
It comes back to freedom of speech. You should have if you want to block somebody because you don't feel they were, you can block them. Well, you don't have to block them. I haven't had a page where I've had to block people, so I don't really know. I've never been in that position. I don't formally believe in my own heart that I can go around backstabbing, nitpicking, or pointing the finger at people and bringing them down or stuff like that, where they could come back at me and have a stab at me, where I'd need to block them on a media page. So maybe we all should take a good look at ourselves in our own hearts. Maybe look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what am I doing wrong? Am I doing things better? Am I doing things the right way? You know, this is what I think. You know, so like I said, I haven't been in a position to do that. Blocking people. Given that, I would say no. I would cop it on the chin. I'd be an Australian and man up and just cop it on the chin. Yeah, that's his point of view. I won't impinge on his freedom by blocking him. That's how I'm going to say it. So, you know, if you can't cop a criticism, maybe you should go to pick a country. You know what I mean? Don't stay here. We're Australians. We're all about sarcasm and a bit of a backstab and all that sort of stuff. If you can't cop a decent criticism on the chin of something that you said, or you've impinged on somebody's freedom, well, you're pretty un-Australian, I think. So.
Okay, can you pass that to Karen? Karen there, please.
I've now been a candidate for the Animal Justice Party since 2017, and I think I'm up to 10 death threats. I have been called horrific names. I've been told that people will come to my work, which is readily accessible to find. We've had to report posts to my page and comments to my page to the police, who now have a file and watch certain comments, and most of this has come from a particular party called the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party. So as a female candidate who runs a business, I find it very disturbing that we think that we can hop on a keyboard and threaten people's lives and threaten the lives of my friends, my animals, my clients, my partner, and I don't think that's okay. So do I block those comments? Absolutely, because it doesn't do any good for other people, especially in the same mind space, to be then being egged on, which is what happens on a lot of my posts. So if you'd like to have a look at what I deal with on a daily basis, have a look at my Facebook page.
Thank you. Andrew, I think you want to make a comment there. Let's just clarify that you had me blocked for about 10 years.
Super brief, yes, and this is why I block.
I'm still waiting for my brown paper back, thank you.
Well said. So obviously I got into Facebook in 2008, and by 2011 my page was at the 5,000 maximum set by Facebook.